And right after I was assaulted, and before the people who I was assaulted by left, public safety drove by, and they didn't see anything go on, and they drove by me. And so you can say I'm making that up, you can say whatever you want, but that is the fact of the matter. And like, I was, my second day here, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who public safety really were, so I didn't do anything. I went back to my room and I called public safety. But I didn't need security cameras to help me. I needed public safety to help me, and they drove by me while I was there in the ground after I had had my face smashed into the grass by someone. So, like from a personal aspect, I don't think, yes, like maybe in aiding in figuring out license plates numbers and so on, that a camera could be useful. Whereas when Delroy Cadre comes to the ACLU meeting and tells us we've moved up our public safety officers from 4 to 8, and that in a utopia we would have 12 officers here, I think that we don't also need these security cameras when I could have been helped by a public safety officer, or even by more emergency phones on campus. So I would just like to add that.
Okay. So one of the issues that I've heard of several times is maybe there's a better alternative. Another issue is whether there is a problem at all. Another issue is, so you want to yell it out?
Profiling.
Is it going too slow?
Profiling.
Profiling.
Abuse of power.
You can do that. So, okay, I heard a couple things that came out of that, which was abuse of power of profiling. And
could we combine, so we have abuse and profiling, and people are worried about accountability.
Yeah.
So could we talk about abuse, profiling, accountability, and trust?
Yes.
And let's talk about that for a little while.
Yeah, I think it's very
Very slow.
Great. So we're going to first address
All that. Abuse, profiling, trust, and accountability.
Can I interject something and maybe hopefully get some focus? First of all, I think a lot of you know me. I'm a staff person here. Nobody's ever accused me of being in the pocket of anybody. You know I'm independent. I want to suggest that one thing you should do is keep your eye on the prize, your objective being your personal security. And watch out, because there's a tendency to digress into a secondary issue like, do you trust the Department of Public Safety? That's separate. I think it's not. Hear me out. Listen, you can say, it's like a hammer. I could give you a hammer, and you can commit a homicide with that hammer. Do I outlaw hammers? It means I can't build a table if you won't let me have a hammer. But it doesn't mean that the camera itself is necessarily your issue. If you're offended by the fact that public safety drives by, one of the things is somebody who's been working with the camera issue for a while, one of the guys that you can talk to after this meeting about it if you want. But the idea is that it's just a tool for somebody to be able to access information that they can't otherwise access. If I saw you on the camera being assaulted, I'd get over there without waiting for the call to come in. And that opportunity doesn't exist if those eyes aren't there. And that's the idea. So I understand that everybody feels, that there's a tendency to have this reaction that my privacy is going to be invaded. But keeping in mind that, among other things, there's cameras on, the Times Square has a camera. People aren't interested in watching other people.
I don't live in Times Square. I don't live in Times Square.
I know, but
for a reason.
Let me just end on this then and say, I honestly think, and remember I was a student too, I think you should actually be fighting for cameras. I know it doesn't sound like a natural inclination for you, but if you take, for example, the idea that this is a policy we're looking to create, we're going to create a broad brush stroke that's going to encompass a lot of things, then you may be eliminating the option of, let's say, having a camera pointed at the bus stop that tells you whether your bus just came by. Oh, I just need to check real quick and look at the past 15 minutes worth of pictures. Oh, look, there's my Smith bus. You're not going to get to do that when we say, that's it, we're not with cameras, we're not letting them on the campus.
So we're going to, in our initial agenda, the way we planned this out, it was difficult to determine how the student body was going to respond to our questions. So if this seems disorganized, that's one of the reasons. But we're going to continue and try to address the 4 main issues that we outlined. And I'm just going to go with whoever's hand I see, and we're going to try to hear you guys out. Cool.
Okay. Okay. The issue of trust with public safety is central to this, because the problem isn't just, are we putting cameras on campus to protect the parking lots, to protect people's cars, to protect certain isolated areas. The question is, who are they going to be looking for? That's why we have abuse and profiling as one of our key issues. Because it's not enough to say, oh, we're going to look at everything and we're going to see everything. The question is, who are they going to specifically be looking at? Last year, there were instances where students here were mistaken for people who had assaulted other students who had broken in. And they were actually like, these people were asked or questioned multiple times. You know, like, it's an ongoing problem. And by having cameras and creating a broad brush, like, resolution, that allows for there to be these nuances that aren't looked at, that people can take advantage of, that create the slippery slope situation that I think Barra was talking about earlier.
I'm just saying that's the subject, and is that the abuse is separate from the camera. The camera isn't the problem.
No, it's not.
All right, hold on. Everybody, hold.
The camera, the tool of the abuse, is part of the question.
I agree, it has the potential, but I'm saying separate.
So instead of everyone speaking out, can we do this by hand, because this is not going to work? And I want to, when people raise these issues, someone on council hopefully will ask, is this the issue that you brought up? For example, guidelines for usage of the cameras. Is that a fair way to sort of describe this? Because in the end, we want to have some points that we can say, here is people's concern.
Because you have as many guidelines as you want, but if there's no oversight.
That's what I mean, so oversight.
Yeah.
I was gonna just request if it would be really nice if we could have sort of a moratorium on people just randomly interrupting other people, and just when someone speaks, even if you don't agree with what they're saying, just let them finish speaking before you decide to respond. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
In the back.
I want to bring up a concern for the way that
Could you speak up a little, please?
Yes. These assaults have been brought up several times, and it seems like there's kind of a contradiction in how we're talking about them. On one hand, they're evidence of, the great reasons that we need cameras, and on the other hand, we're being told that it's not about assault, it's about cars. So I just think that whichever way it is, whether we should be, if the cameras aren't about preventing assault, then that can't be evidence for having them on campus.
I think part of the issue of abuse and profiling, and why it's not just the potential for cameras to be abused, but the cameras lend themselves to that, because it's just this visual picture. And if you have this idea that you're going to be able to see who's coming onto the campus, whether you're doing it consciously or not, you're going to have an idea of who looks like somebody that shouldn't be coming onto the campus, who looks like a homeless person, like a dangerous person, like someone that might assault somebody or commit a crime. So I think it's really important to be like, are the cameras just for like, and I don't think, like, from what I've heard, it doesn't seem like the cameras are just for if a crime is committed, going back and looking at it, but if you see a suspicious person, and no matter how many guidelines for that you have, we all have our biases, the things that have been worked into our heads that just shape the way that we're gonna, like, see someone on the camera. We don't know anything about them except they look kind of like scraggly and like, maybe dangerous. And I just like, that's why I think the cameras, more so than just having the potential to be abused, really can't be used responsibly.